The fourth step only occurs when you've actually made a financial mistake, and that step is determining why you made the mistake in the first place. And this can go back to some mix of investment biases and money disorders like the ones we talked about from the beginning of this episode and this podcast. We had, for our first interview ever, Dr. Ted Klontz, who wrote the book Mind Over Money about financial disorders. He actually doesn't like the term financial disorder, but there are a great many of them that he talks about in his book where there are things that you saw and observed and gleaned as a child that inform how you deal with money as an adult. There's a great number of them. There's financial denial, where you are so stressed out by money that you just act like it doesn't exist. Even if it's burning behind you, you would just rather just avoid it in the first place. There's financial rejection, where you have some guilt and shame about the money that you're making or earning, and you find a way to make poor decisions and get it out of your hands. And there's also investment biases. For example, there's overconfidence, where you have a higher opinion than you should of your own abilities to analyze an investment. There's confirmation bias, where you are ignoring all of the information that's counter to what you think about an investment. There is anchoring, where you have a certain price or performance in your mind and you stick in an investment too long because you are trying to get back to that high watermark that you have in your head. There's recency bias. There's herd mentality, which is one we see a lot, where you are just going along with what you heard people say you should invest in and how you should invest, and it leads to negative financial decisions. And then there's loss aversion. Loss aversion can tie into a disorder like excessive loss avoidance, where you've seen something in your early life that makes you so afraid of taking risks that it actually costs you in the long run and makes it more difficult to achieve your financial goals. All of these things can factor into bad decisions. I've talked about and did talk about on the episode that we linked to about my biggest financial mistakes, an investment property in Nashville that my wife and I were trying to purchase. It was $117,500, which, if you know anything about Nashville, that just doesn't exist. And the only reason we didn't get that property is because we didn't have a good enough debt to income ratio. And they said, we will still give you the property if your parents co-sign on it. Now, at the time, I said, no, we have to stand on our own 2 feet. That would be inappropriate to ask my parents to take on that financial burden, even though it wasn't going to cost them anything. We were going to take care of the house. They just had to sign for it. And I didn't do it. And I thought that I was making the right decision. With time and age and wisdom, I look back at my childhood and I can recognize that when I was growing up, the son of a doctor and a realtor who did well, I had to deal with a lot of, oh, those are the rich kids, or they're spoiled, or their parents give them everything. They don't have to work for anything. And while I would like to think that that didn't bother me, I look back and I say there are some positives that came from that, in the sense that I work very hard to make sure I show appreciation for whatever my parents have given me. But on the negative side, there are a lot of things where I have made decisions based on the fact that I just am very uncomfortable with receiving assistance. Going back to that childhood of feeling like if I accept help, it means that I failed, or that I can't do something on my own, or that they did it for me. And that pride has put me in positions where we've lost tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least on those two properties.